The first audio clip hit me like a physical blow, my own voice dripping with contempt. Then came the HR email, the blocked calls, the shattering realization. My world was unraveling, brick by brick, and the architect of my downfall was the man I dismissed as too sensitive. How had I misjudged him so catastrophically? The Sunday morning sun was a cruel, unwelcome interrogator, prying my eyelids open with surgical precision. A dull, rhythmic jackhammer was trying to beat its way out of my skull, a predictable consequence of last night's free-flowing champagne. But even the hangover couldn't extinguish the warm, smug glow spreading through my chest. Last night replayed in my mind not as a series of blurry memories, but as a highlight reel of my own social brilliance. The centerpiece, my magnum opus, was a perfectly timed, exquisitely delivered joke at my partner male's expense. It had been a masterstroke. The initial, sharp intake of breath from the crowd, followed by a wave of validating laughter, had crowned me the undisputed queen of the evening. Of course, he hadn't come home with me. I pictured him holed up somewhere, probably his brother's couch, stewing in his own sensitivity. It was his classic move. He'd retreat, overthink, and then after a sufficient period of self-imposed exile, he'd return, offering a sheepish apology for being too sensitive. I sighed, pouring fresh coffee into my favorite ceramic mug. He'd be back, he always came back. Our relationship had a certain rhythm, and this was just the silent beat before the familiar melody of his return. The silence in our apartment was profound, almost a physical presence. The usual background noise of his existence, the soft clatter of his keyboard, the low hum of his video games, the almost comically loud slosh of his giant water bottle was gone. And in its place, a blissful void. For a moment I savored it. It felt less like emptiness and more like a respite, a brief, peaceful intermission from his quiet, heavy presence. He needed to learn to take a joke. I was just helping him toughen up. I took a sip of my coffee. It tasted better without the faint, cloying scent of his hurt feelings in the air. I gave him until noon. He'd call, I was sure of it. The memory of the party was intoxicatingly vivid, more so than the champagne itself. It was at Chloe's place, her apartment buzzing with the kind of loud, self-congratulatory energy our circle thrived on. I was in my element, holding court near the open kitchen, my voice a confident, melodic thread weaving through the general din. The conversation had inevitably drifted to the modern trinity of obsessions: fitness, diets, and the relentless pursuit of self-optimization. Someone, I think it was Liam, slapped Mail playfully on the back and remarked how solid he was looking. It wasn't malicious, just a clumsy observation, but to me it was a perfectly served volleyball hanging in the air, begging to be spiked. I seized the moment, raising my voice just enough to cut through the chatter. Oh, Mail doesn't get upset about little things like that, do you, babe? I smiled, a wide, dazzling smile that I knew made my eyes sparkle. I paused for dramatic effect, letting every eye in the room drift towards him. He's got a really thick skin. I let the words hang there for a beat, then delivered the punchline with a conspiratorial wink. And there's just a lot of it. The reaction was instantaneous. A split second of stunned silence, a collective intake of breath, and then the explosion. It wasn't just laughter. It was a cacophony of snorts, guffaws, and high-pitched shrieks. Some people, like Chloe, shot Mail an uneasy glance, their smiles faltering. But most were swept up in the moment, their laughter a testament to my wit. I felt a rush of power. This was my stage, but Mail, he didn't react the way he was supposed to. There was no flicker of hurt, no forced, tight-lipped smile, no embarrassed glance at the floor. He just stood there, his expression eerily calm. He looked directly at me and a slow, strange smile spread across his face. It didn't reach his eyes. His eyes were cold, clear, and utterly unreadable. Celeste always finds the most accurate words, he said, his voice even and devoid of any emotion, that was it. He didn't defend himself, he didn't get angry. He simply agreed in a way that felt more like a verdict than a concession. His placid response unnerved me, souring my moment of triumph. He was supposed to be the butt of the joke, not its silent, unnerving judge. He had ruined my performance. Back in the sterile silence of Sunday morning, my phone buzzed on the granite countertop. The screen lit up with Mail's name. Finally, 12 hours of radio silence, and now, right on schedule, the groveling would begin. I smirked, ready to be magnanimous in my victory. But the message wasn't a string of apologetic texts. It was a single, stark notification, an audio file. Beneath it, a 5-word caption that made no sense to me. Here are her real calories. My first reaction was a flash of irritation. Was this his idea of a comeback, a petty, passive-aggressive jab? I scoffed, plugging in my earbuds with a sense of weary condescension. I'd listen to his little audio tantrum, then I'd call and put him in his place. I pressed play. It wasn't his voice. It was mine. A slickly edited, brutally curated compilation of my own words, stitched together into a horrifying tapestry of contempt. It's not the weight itself, Chloe, it's the lack of discipline, it's just lazy. Honestly, sometimes when we go out with your friends, I feel like I have to apologize for him. He bought another set of dumbbells. They'll just sit there like expensive metallic proof that he's going to fail again. He huffs and puffs walking up the stairs, it's so embarrassing. I told him the shirt looked fine, but honestly, he looks like a sausage stuffed into a designer casing. My voice, my private thoughts, my secret complaints, my casual cruelties, all laid bare. The recording was a venomous highlight reel of the past year, each clip a dagger I had unknowingly sharpened myself. My blood ran cold, then boiled over into a tidal wave of pure rage. He recorded me, he had been asterisk recording me. The violation felt seismic, a betrayal so profound it eclipsed everything else. The audio file ended and a new, clearer clip played. It was Male's voice recorded just last night after he'd left the party. It was quiet, steady, and utterly chilling. Celeste, he said, public humiliation is a dish best served cold. Enjoy your meal. The world tilted. I ripped the earbuds out and frantically dialed his number, straight to voicemail. I tried again, voicemail. A cold, hard knot of dread formed in my stomach. I had been blocked. This wasn't sulking. This was something else entirely. This was a declaration of war. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through my rage. My mind was a frantic scramble of justifications and fury. He's the crazy one, he recorded me. That's illegal. I was already building my case, casting myself as the victim of a deranged spy. Before I could even formulate a plan, my laptop chimed with a new email notification. The sender was HR. The subject line screamed in all caps, urgent meeting regarding professional conduct. My boss, Mr. Harrison, was CC'd. A sliver of denial wedged itself into my fear. It's a coincidence. It has to be, but the timing was too perfect, too sinister. I threw on the first professional-looking outfit I could find, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the buttons. The drive to the office was a blur of paranoid thoughts. What could he have possibly sent them? I walked into the glass-walled conference room to an atmosphere of Arctic frost. Mr. Harrison and Brenda from HR were seated at the long table, their faces grim and unreadable masks. There were no pleasantries. Celeste, thank you for coming in on such short notice, Brenda began, her voice devoid of its usual warmth. We received a communication this morning that has raised serious concerns. Mr. Harrison didn't speak. He just turned his laptop screen towards me and clicked a mouse. And then I heard it, my own voice echoing in the sterile room, but this time it was a different, horrifyingly specific clip. This new client, Mr. Abernathy, the big guy from the logistics firm, God, I dread our meetings. I feel like I have to widen the doorway for him to get through. He breathes like a pug just sitting there. I swear I can smell the bacon grease sweating out of him, asterisk. The audio file Mail had sent them was a bespoke masterpiece of my own professional self-destruction. It was a greatest hits of me mocking clients, complaining about colleagues, and generally being the kind of toxic employee companies have nightmares about. My blood turned to ice water. I had said those things, yes, but in what I thought were private, whispered conversations with a work friend over coffee. Mail must have been listening, recording, cataloging. Celeste, Mr. Harrison said, his voice low and dangerously calm as he switched off the audio. This firm has a zero-tolerance policy on workplace bullying and discriminatory language. It's not just about our internal culture, it's about how we represent ourselves to our clients. Mr. Abernathy's account is one of our largest. He didn't need to say anything else. You are suspended without pay effective immediately, Brenda stated, sliding a letter across the table. Pending a full investigation, which, I must be frank, will most likely result in the termination of your employment. I stumbled out of the office, the corporate jargon ringing in my ears. The city skyline outside the window seemed to mock me, a glittering monument to a life that was, in the span of a single morning, systematically imploding. I sat in my car in the sterile corporate parking garage, the engine off, the world outside muted and distant. My professional life had just been detonated, and I was sitting in the smoking crater. My phone rang, shattering the silence. The screen displayed Mom. A wave of relief washed over me. Mom would understand. She would tell me Mail was a monster, that I was the victim here. Mom, I answered, my voice already cracking, ready to unleash the torrent of my righteous indignation. Celeste. Her voice was tight, strained, vibrating with an emotion I couldn't immediately place. It wasn't sympathy, I just got off the phone with Mail. My relief curdled. What did he say? Mom, he recorded me, he's trying to ruin my life. He sent me something, Celeste, she cut in, her voice trembling. An audio file, I heard you. The accusation was quiet, but it hit me with the force of a physical blow. I heard what you said about his family not being good enough for ours. I heard you telling Chloe you were embarrassed to bring him to Christmas because he'd probably eat all the dessert before it was even served. How could you say such cruel, horrible things about a man we have welcomed into our home? A man who has treated you with nothing but kindness. The version he sent my mother was another custom-tailored missile, designed for maximum emotional impact. It was a collection of my snobbery, my elitism, My most callous remarks about his blue-collar background versus my family's white-collar world. Mom, you don't understand, he's twisting everything. It was out of context, they were just stupid comments. I pleaded, the desperation raw in my throat. The only thing twisted here is your character, she said, her voice now cold with a shame that was directed entirely at me. He recorded you, yes, but the words, Celeste, the words were yours. I don't even know who you are right now. The line went dead, she had hung up on me. I stared at my phone, my hand shaking uncontrollably, my own mother. He had turned my own mother against me. As if on cue, another email notification popped up on my phone's screen. The sender was Dr. Anya Sharma, my therapist for the past 2 years. The email was brief, professional, and utterly devastating. Subject, termination of therapeutic services asterisk. Dear Celeste asterisk. This morning I received a communication from male last name. He forwarded materials that ethically I was compelled to review. The content of these materials reveals a significant pattern of deception and emotional manipulation within your primary relationship, aspects of which were never disclosed in our sessions. Given this fundamental breach of trust, I no longer believe a productive therapeutic alliance is possible between us. I am terminating our sessions effective immediately and will provide you with a list of referrals to other qualified practitioners. Sincerely asterisk. Dr. Anya Sharma asterisk. He had even dismantled my safety net. The one place I was supposed to be able to go to untangle my thoughts was now gone, its door slammed shut and locked from the inside. Mail hadn't just left me. He was salting the earth of my entire existence. I was in a free fall and the ground was rushing up to meet me. There was only one parachute left, Chloe. She was my best friend, my ride or die, she'd see my side. She had too. I drove to her apartment on autopilot, my mind a screaming vortex of panic and fury. I practically fell through her door when she opened it, launching into my story before she could even say hello. I was a torrent of righteous anger, a victimized heroine in a tragedy of my own making. I painted a vivid picture of Mail as a calculating, vindictive monster, a digital stalker who had meticulously plotted my downfall. I emphasized the violation, the sheer creepiness of him recording our private moments. Can you believe he would do something so sick? I sobbed, pacing her living room. To secretly record me, he's insane. I carefully omitted the actual content of the recordings, focusing solely on the treachery of his methods, hoping to steer her outrage in the direction I needed it to go. Chloe didn't immediately wrap me in a comforting hug. She didn't gasp in horror or curse Mail's name. She just stood by her kitchen counter, watching me, her expression unnervingly placid. She listened to my entire tirade without interruption. When I finally ran out of steam, breathless and crying, she walked over to the sink, filled a glass with water, and handed it to me. Celeste, she said, her voice quiet but firm, cutting through my histrionics. Do you really think the recording is the issue here? The question was so unexpected it stunned me into silence. What, of course it is, it's a complete violation of trust. Is it? She challenged, her gaze unwavering. Last night at the party, I was about to say something to you. When you made that joke, and it wasn't the first time, Celeste, we've all seen it. The little digs, the playful insults, the way you use your wit like a weapon against him. We've watched him absorb it time and time again and just get smaller. My mouth opened to protest, but she held up a hand. He didn't create anything, Cell. He didn't put words in your mouth, he just hit record. He held up a mirror. What you're seeing, what your boss is seeing, what your mom is seeing, that's you. It's the real you, the one you hide behind your clever jokes and your perfect outfits. Her words were not a comfort, they were a judgment. Each one was a perfectly aimed stone, shattering the glass house of my self-pity. Maybe his method was extreme, she conceded, her voice softening just a fraction, but not with pity, with a sad finality. But you can't spend years pouring poison into someone's cup and then act surprised when they finally decide to make you drink it. He didn't ruin your life, Celeste. He just exposed the life you were already living. You built this. He just sent out the invitations to the demolition party. Chloe's words echoed in the cavernous silence of my car on the drive home. They weren't the comforting lies I had craved, but the brutal, illuminating truth I had been avoiding for years. The rage was gone, the self-pity had evaporated, and all that was left was a hollow, aching void. I walked into the apartment, my apartment now, and the full extent of his departure hit me. It wasn't just his clothes from the closet or his toothbrush from the holder. It was everything. His worn-out armchair in the corner, his ridiculously large collection of sci-fi novels that I always complained about, the ugly but sentimental mug he drank his tea from every morning. All of it gone, the space he occupied had been scrubbed clean, leaving behind an eerie, sterile emptiness. He hadn't just moved out, he had erased himself. On the polished surface of the dining table where we'd shared so many meals sat a single key. Next to it was a crisp, folded piece of paper. It wasn't a letter. There were no final, angry words, no anguished explanations. It was just a business card for a family law attorney with a woman's name and number neatly printed on it. A sticky note was attached. "She'll handle the asset division," it read in his familiar, precise handwriting. I sank onto a dining chair, the silence of the room pressing in on me. He had left nothing to argue about, nothing to negotiate. This wasn't a breakup, it was a corporate dissolution. My phone was still in my hand. I navigated to the audio file he had sent me, the one titled "Here Are Her Real Calories." I put my earbuds in and pressed play. This time, I didn't listen with indignation or a need to build a defense. I just listened, and for the first time, I truly heard it. I heard the casual cruelty, the smug superiority, the relentless, dripping poison in my own voice. It was the soundtrack to my own monstrosity. I had lost my partner, my job, my family's respect, and my friends' unquestioning loyalty. Mail hadn't just walked away. He had performed a flawless, systematic amputation, surgically removing every support structure in my life that he had in some way been holding up. Months bled into a gray, featureless expanse. My life had been stripped down to its studs. I was fired, predictably. The investigation was a mere formality. My name was mud in my industry, a cautionary tale whispered in virtual meetings. I lost the apartment, unable to afford it on my own, and moved into a cramped studio that always smelled faintly of stale curry from the neighboring unit. I found a job waiting tables at a small, independent coffee shop, the forced smiles, and "have a nice day"s a bitter irony that I swallowed down with my pride. One evening, endlessly scrolling through my phone in a pathetic attempt to feel connected to a world I no longer belonged to, I saw him. It was on Chloe's feed. She had posted a gallery of photos from a weekend trip, and there in the middle of a laughing group was Mail. He was different. He had lost weight, that much was obvious, but it was more than that. His face, once perpetually clouded by a subtle, weary tension I had refused to see, was clear and open. He was beaming, a full-throated, genuine smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. He had just completed a marathon, a medal hung around his neck. He was surrounded by a group of new, vibrant-looking friends, all of them cheering, patting him on the back. The caption Chloe wrote was simple, but it felt like a dagger aimed directly at my heart. "Cut the dead weight, run your own race, so proud of this guy." A familiar, ugly thought flickered in the ruins of my mind. If only he had just talked to me, we could have fixed this. The thought was a reflex, a last gasp of the old Celeste who was never wrong. But it was immediately extinguished by a clearer, colder, and more painful realization that washed over me with the force of a tidal wave. He did talk to me. He had tried in his quiet ways. In the hurt silences after my jokes, in the hopeful way he'd show me a new healthy recipe, in the sad, resigned look in his eyes that I had always chosen to interpret as weakness. He had been speaking to me for years, I just hadn't been listening. He was running his own race now, lighter and faster, his future stretching out bright and clear ahead of him. And I was left behind, standing completely still in the rubble of a life I had single-handedly destroyed.